Well, let's bring in Andy McCarthy, former federal prosecutor and Fox News contributor. I was really struck by that sign that Alexis just talked about. You know, the kids live here sign outside, hoping that, you know, if there is any violence, that house would, you know, hopefully be spared any sort of violence. I also noted that the judge in this case has received death threats against himself and his children. Perhaps that's normal. Andy, you tell me. I don't know if the tension is just higher here than we've seen in a long time.
I think, unfortunately, Dana, it's the world we live in with social media, which kind of invites people to act on their worst instincts anonymously, which encourages them to do this sort of thing. It's just a sign of the times.
Let me also mention this. So I just checked. In the O.J. Simpson trial, that jury deliberated 4 hours. For Derek Chauvin, it was a little over 10 hours for 2 days. This is now entering its second day of deliberations. Anything that can be gleaned from that?
Yeah, you know, this is a strange case, Dana, in that most cases that go to trial have factual disputes that the jury has to work out. So we usually get a window into the deliberations because they'll send out notes asking for readbacks of testimony. In this case, the facts are pretty clear, and what we're down to is a real hard legal dispute over whether this amounts to self-defense or not. And as John Turley pointed out, from the very beginning of the deliberations, the jury has had the judge's legal instructions, particularly the legal instructions on self-defense. So I think they may be working very hard, and I agree that most of the time juries are very diligent. But we may not get the usual window because they may not be asking for readbacks of testimony. They may have, by having the judge's instructions there, they may have everything they need to argue among themselves how the case should come out.
Very interesting. What do you think about jury intimidation? You got these crowds outside; they can hear them inside the courthouse. Not good. I don't think that would be a good look. If I were a judge, I'd want to protect them from that. What's your view on it, Andy?
Bill, I'm worried about it, and I've been worried about it, and I think it's not just a matter of what's going on outside the courthouse, which I agree is egregious and worrisome. But I think that, you know, we spent a lot of time covering the Chauvin trial, and we got a sense, because we were at it every day, that that's the way trials go. But if you remember, the Chauvin case was during the COVID protocols, and really there weren't spectators in the courtroom. And I thought to the extent we had cameras, they were very stationary, and there was kind of set rules about what they were allowed to cover. In this case, it's been much more like pre-COVID times, so there's been spectators. And we know that there have been people in the courtroom who have been, you know, staring at the jurors, checking out the jurors. The cameras are moving around, which I think could unnerve the jurors in the sense that if they have, you know, video of what they look like, that could be broadcast to the public. They don't know exactly how that's being used because they're not supposed to be looking at publicity about the case. So it's not just what's going on outside the trial, outside the courthouse, and then you couple that with the fact that the judge is not sequestering them. He's letting them go home and come back, so they're getting some exposure to what's going on in the community.
Then, Andy, can I ask you something on that? In any case, not just in this case, could the jury not being sequestered be grounds for an appeal from either side?
It can be grounds for an appeal, Dana. It would be highly unusual unless there's some concrete fact that they can articulate that there's evidence of, which is something that you could hang your hat on about intimidation. The chance of getting a reversal on that ground just because there was an atmosphere of intimidation, I think, is unlikely.
Andy, thank you for your time. It's good to get your analysis, and we've got you on standby, right? You and Turley and everybody else.
You can't even walk the dog today. Stay right there.
Thank you, Andy. Nice to see you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Brian Kilmeade. I want you to do me a favor. I want you to click to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page. This is the only way that I know for sure that you're not going to miss any great commentary, any great news bites, any great interviews coming your way on Fox. You can get it all here on YouTube. So subscribe right now.